because we were committed. Everyone in that room was committed to meet the emission standards and the targets for 2030. And we're all on the same page there. We have different ways to do that. So, but I was excited by the fact that, there was no confusion about the goal, just a confusion in some ways of how to get there.
Well, Mr. Higgs, what do you think about the fact that Mr. Legault won't help you with the pipeline?
Well, this is the first time I had a discussion with Premier Legault, and I understand the sensitivities. I understand the political sensitivities, and the first process was a flawed one, and a lot of people had a lot of concerns, and he's representing his province, and I understand that. I'm going through that with the shale gas development. But what's interesting with this is that we'll continue to work and talk about what opportunities we have together. When I was talking with the Premier of BC, and so where they were talking about the environmental plan, and what was kind of ironic is that BC has had a shale gas industry for 50 years. They're building a new LNG plant. Well, here I am in New Brunswick. I already have an LNG plant, and we're looking for a gas supply, and we have gas supply. We're just trying to get it out of the ground. So on the one hand, one province is being lauded for their great environmental track record, and I agree, they indeed do. But here I am trying to develop the very same thing on the East Coast and move the bar, and yet it's said that this is not a green step. To me, moving down the gas trail is a very much a green step, and it's moving away from heavy oil, and it's moving into the environment of clean gas and further down the emissions. And the only push, of course, on the oil side is that, Alberta are producing, I think they were saying 300,000 to 400,000 barrels a day of oil. It maybe could be higher than that. But we're importing far greater than that. And the goal here is to displace foreign oil.
But Mr. Legault wants to send you more hydro, but won't help you with the pipeline. What do you think about that?
Well, it's concerning for sure. I think that I'm hopeful that we'll be able to continue the discussions because it's a two-way street. And we have to do that. I understand his situation, and I'm hopeful that he'll understand mine. But I also understand what he's faced with politically. And so we have to find a way to work with the residents who it's a real concern and say, do we really want that many rail cars transporting 100,000 barrels of oil a day across our country or more? I mean, maybe as high as 300,000 or 400,000, or do we want to go the safest means possible to displace foreign oil? And it's a communication effort for all of us. And I appreciate the predicament he's in.
Is anything tangible going to come out of this meeting? Is anything tangible going to come out of this meeting today?
Well, there were, it's interesting that there were items on the interprovincial trade. And as I said before, I'm an engineer by profession, and I was used to targets and milestones and ownership. And many said, this was one of the most productive meetings that they've been in for a long time. So I was glad to be part of that. And from that, I think the idea of the stranded assets, be it hydro, be it oil, are going to be top of mind in terms of we have to find a solution there, and that was a general consensus. I won't say as I actually got the timeline required, but Premier Notley made the passionate pitch, and it's real. But we all should consider it real because we all share in transfer payments, and so I think every one of us need to think long and hard about how we help.
When you say most productive, one of the most productive meetings.
Well, everything was discussed. But so the discussion in terms of moving the bar, whether it be discussing the tariffs and the softwood lumber agreement. I mean, I asked that. We've been talking about that for a long time, and I will be meeting with the officials going forward because I have a situation there where small companies are paying 20% tariff, and as soon as the prices are volatile in the lumber business, the dollar exchange rate could change. I've got companies that with a 20% tariff that'll go out of business. So there's a sense of urgency. I got that on other issues in terms of interprovincial trade. I mean, we talked about several of them, headed by the Premier of Nova Scotia and Premier of Manitoba. And so I was encouraged by kind of no holds barred discussion. And that's what we wanted. And that's what we got.
What's the next step on energy?
Well, for me, it's going to be a communication program because certainly we have support across the country with the concerns and recognizing the concerns that Premier Legault has certainly stated here, and I'm not denying any of that because I recognize that's real. But how do we address those concerns? Is there a possibility to address those concerns? And I think over the years in my career, it was always every day was a challenge, and you never walk away from an opportunity that makes sense. And as I said in the meeting, you know, you look around the room and you say, okay, what is the right decision? And then you don't find a whole lot of reasons why you can't do it. You find every reason possible to make it happen.
Did you feel that Monsieur Legault was somewhat open to your arguments?
Premier Legault?
Yeah.
He was very responsive and sensitive to the situation that I have in New Brunswick and the situation that Premier Notley has in Alberta, because it relates to his situation within hydropower. So he recognized that there were similarities there. And so both challenges that were real in terms of stranded assets, stranded energy that we're not taking advantage of.
Do you feel that you can change his mind?
Well, it's not going to be easy. And I guess I have no indication that will be a possibility, so I won't pretend otherwise. But I am optimistic that if we work with people in our province, in his province, and across the nation, that we'll find solutions. And so I'll just keep working in that direction.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Why is it worth your time? If the message from Quebec is so negative on energy, why is it worth your time and your energy to focus on this instead of looking at other opportunities for New Brunswick?
Our province is in last place in economic growth. We have solutions there in terms of deferring foreign oil. We are importing probably 250,000 barrels a day and more of foreign oil into New Brunswick. This displaces that. We have all the infrastructure in place to transship or displace foreign oil. It's not bringing in a new refinery. It's bringing in a process that already exists. The capability already exists to handle it or to increase production using our own resource. The other aspect of this in terms of using the BC model, we have natural gas in New Brunswick. And we've agreed to move forward in a regionalized area because there's a lot of sensitivities. BC, who have a history in successful natural gas exploration and development, and are proposing an LNG pipeline or an LNG plant. It's a similarity that I have on the East Coast, although I already have the plant. So for me, it's looking at all of the opportunities. It isn't the only ones, but these are real ones that are there. They're major contributors in terms of our economic growth, and it's private sector investment. I've only been in government for a short while. As you know, we had the longest election, I think, in the history of Canada. They took me 5 weeks to get here after the election, and it's been a struggle. But the last 2 weeks have been fun because I've seen all of the potential that exists when you start talking about real issues. I will continue to do that. I'll continue to fight for what's right for New Brunswick and what's right for our country.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Merci.